Hi, this is Steve Rigolosi, and today on Forgotten Mysteries, I have for you Dell Shannon, Crime on Their Hands, copyright 1969 by Morrow. So, Dell Shannon was known as the Queen of the Procedurals because she was, I believe, the first woman to write in the police procedural genre that was made so well known by people like Ed McBain and by J.J. Marrick in England, also known as John Creasy. And Dell Shannon was a very, very prolific writer. She also wrote under a bunch of pseudonyms. She has several different series. Her heyday, I would say, was about in the 1960s through 1970s. Interesting personal story. I first became aware of her when I was a teenager, and I belonged to the Mystery Guild book club, which I remember very fondly. And the first book I ever bought from them was a Dell Shannon book titled Appearances of Death, which is a much later entry in the series. And I remember reading it back in those days and feeling as though I had never read anything like it before. This kind of slice of life at a police station and this juggling of multiple cases, this feeling of trying to kind of replicate what goes on in a big city police station on a day-to-day basis. And so I've been following her for many years now, and I have a lot of things to say about her because I have really not figured her out. She is an enigma to me, and I think to a lot of other people. So I can't possibly say everything I'd like to say about her in just a few minutes, so I'll try to keep it focused, and then when I review other books of hers under other pseudonyms, I'll maybe add to the conversation. So Crime on Their Hands is number 17 of 37 books in the Luis Mendoza series. Mendoza is a lieutenant in LAPD, homicide, and he was introduced with the first book, Case Pending, which was nominated for an Edgar, but didn't win. And he's a rather an interesting character in that he is of Mexican heritage. He's independently wealthy due to a grandfather who was a professional, but sort of under the table gambler who was able to squirrel away a lot of money, and it all came to Luis. So he drives a fancy car, a Ferrari. He lives in a big house with his wife and family. You know, he's not what you would think of as the typical police officer. Shannon, I think you can divide her career into three sections. In the early part of her career, she was more concerned with plotting and telling a good story with surprises through police procedure. By the middle of her career, she had begun to put more cases into each book so that each individual case got less page time. And by the end of her career, she had really kind of gone off the deep end in terms of just spitting out like 14 or 15 cases per 200-page book. And in those books, they're marked by a lot of the crimes being solved by coincidence or by confession. So they're not as satisfying to read as the earlier books. Crime on Their Hands is just right about in the middle. And you see her, in her mid-career books, she tends to have one or two main cases along with a bunch of other side cases. And in this one, the main story is pretty good. It's about a charming grifter who gets murdered. And it's kind of fun to follow the police as they investigate him because he's quite the man for the ladies, and he tells one that he's a CIA agent. One he tells that he's a member of a government agency. He just lies his way through life every day until someone catches up with him. And there are a bunch of secondary stories here too. So let me give you what I see as the pros and the cons of reading this book or any Dell Shannon book. The first is that they are fast reads, and you really can finish them in 2 days. And you do feel as though you are there with the police force. And some of her story, her plots and subplots are clever, and some of them feel more like throwaways. So many Dell Shannon books are a kind of a mixed bag. One thing that she does really, really well is she encapsulates a character's description, just a couple of sentences. And I've never really seen another writer who can do that. So there are many characters flitting in and out of these pages. And the way she describes them in just 2 or 3 sentences, you have a picture of that person in your mind. It's pretty remarkable. And so I sort of marvel at her ability in that regard. And as a writer, she's okay. She, she's no Ed McBain. I have to say, I think he is the king. But it's all, it's all entertaining enough and, not meant to be taken too seriously. Here are what I would consider the negatives of her books. Although negative may be too strong a word. Well, let's say the quirks of her book, or what her ethos is. The first thing is that she believed firmly that the police were the good guys. So every man in LAPD homicide, and they are all men, because this is the 60s, they're all good people who go home to their families, and nobody's an alcoholic, nobody's depressed, nobody is an abuser. Everyone is a pretty good egg. And Shannon is on record as saying that she believed that is what her readers wanted. They wanted some sort of moral characters who would go out there and fight crime and take the dirtbags off the street. The problem is that a lot of the characters, and there are so many of them, are really kind of interchangeable. They're all white men who go home to their sort of airy-fairy housewives who have the children and cook dinner and engage in light conversation with them. And it can be really tough to keep track of all the names of the police officers and their spouses and their children. So I actually keep a cheat sheet for myself, an index card that I keep in the books to refer to. So wanting policemen to be good and moral is a good thing, in my opinion. But Dell Shannon is very, very classist. She believes that there are good people and that there are bad people. And the bad people, regardless of how they look, their gender, their race, their ethnicity, has nothing to do with any of those aspects of their identities. It's all about how they behave. And she looks down on people whom she considers to be not socially desirable. So she's very hard on juvenile delinquents, as she calls them. She just wants all of them locked into prison and thrown away the key. She frequently rants against parole and judges that are too liberal, that are taking these criminals that the cops have worked so hard to find, and then just sort of letting them out on a technicality, or just being too liberal. And she also gets into some other more conservative issues too, like taxes and other things that tend to be flashpoints for people who think more conservatively. So you have to be, I think, kind of aware of that. She's not racist. I mean, her lead character is Mexican American, and in some of her other series, she has minority heroes who she clearly likes and admires. One series with Jesse Falkenstein, he's Jewish. In another series, she has Vic Varallo, he's Italian. In the Mendoza series, one of the squad members, Jason Grace, is black, and they're all presented as fine, upstanding men. But she had no patience for what she considered the dirt bags of society, and it can lead her to be cruel sometimes. She will have her characters refer to somebody who has died or has been murdered as being no loss to society. That's a phrase. It's no loss that this person has died. She's not patient with what she would consider women of easy virtue. How's that for a euphemism? She believed that a woman's place was in the home, and that is what her women do, her police officers' wives do. And she's not anti-woman. She's just anti-lower class woman, or anti-woman who doesn't hold up to her standards of what a good American woman should be. So, like I said, I have a lot of other things to say about Dell Shannon because she's such an enigma to me, but I won't bore you with that now. I think if you'd like to try a Shannon, or if you've already read Shannon's, you'll find them to be a throwback. They don't feel like they were written today. They feel like they were written in the 60s and 70s. But if you like a police procedural, give them a try. I'd love to hear what you think. There are some people on the web I've noticed who have, I think, made it a personal goal to destroy her reputation because of some of the things she says and does. And I'll talk about that in another video too. Because like I said, she's a cipher. Very hard to find biographical information about her and what she really believed and what she really thought. So, Crime on Their Hands, number 17 in the Dell Shannon Luis Mendoza series. And I'll be back with more reviews after I read books that are good for review here. Thank you.